The name Jeffrey Dahmer still sends a chill through America decades later. Not just because of what he did, but because of how long he went unnoticed. How does someone commit such horrifying crimes in plain sight, in a city full of people, and no one truly stops it until it's almost too late? Tonight, we dive into a case that blurs the line between human and monster. A story filled with missed warnings, disturbing patterns, and a darkness that hid behind an ordinary face. This is the story of Jeffrey Dahmer, a man whose crimes shocked the world and exposed terrifying cracks in the system. Jeffrey Dahmer was born in 1960 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. From the outside, his childhood seemed typical. But behind closed doors, something was already beginning to fracture. As a teenager, Dahmer became increasingly withdrawn. He developed a fascination with dead animals, collecting and dissecting them in ways that raised serious concerns. But at the time, these warning signs were brushed aside as strange behavior rather than something more dangerous. By the late 1970s, Dahmer's life had spiraled. Struggling with alcohol and isolation, he committed his first murder shortly after graduating high school. The victim was a hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks. Dahmer lured him to his home, and what followed marked the beginning of a pattern that would escalate over the next decade. After the murder, Dahmer went undetected. No arrest. No investigation that led back to him. It was as if he had slipped through the cracks of the system entirely. For years, Dahmer lived a double life. On the surface, he was quiet, unassuming, even forgettable. But behind his apartment door, a nightmare was unfolding. Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer murdered 17 young men and boys. He targeted vulnerable individuals, often luring them with promises of money or companionship. His methods were calculated, his behavior disturbingly controlled. What makes this case even more chilling is how close authorities came to stopping him multiple times. In one instance, a young victim managed to escape and flagged down police. But instead of recognizing the danger, officers returned the victim to Dahmer, believing it was simply a domestic dispute. That decision would later become one of the most criticized moments in the entire case. As the years went on, the signs grew harder to ignore. Neighbors complained about strange smells coming from Dahmer's apartment. There were reports of odd behavior, loud noises, and an unsettling atmosphere. Yet, despite these warnings, no thorough investigation was conducted. Dahmer continued, unchecked. If you're finding this story as disturbing and gripping as it truly is, make sure to subscribe to Shadow Files. We break down the darkest cases with facts, clarity, and a deep dive into what really happened. Your support helps us continue uncovering these chilling stories. Everything changed in July of 1991. One of Dahmer's intended victims, Tracy Edwards, managed to escape. Handcuffed and terrified, Edwards flagged down police officers and told them something was horribly wrong. This time, authorities took action. When they entered Dahmer's apartment, what they discovered was beyond anything they could have imagined. Inside, officers found photographs that documented Dahmer's crimes. Evidence of violence, remains hidden throughout the apartment, and proof that confirmed the worst fears. It wasn't just a crime scene. It was a place of horror that had existed undetected for years. Dahmer was arrested immediately. During interrogation, he confessed in chilling detail. He spoke calmly, almost detached, as he described what he had done. There was no attempt to deny it. No effort to hide. It was as if he had been waiting for someone to finally uncover the truth. The trial of Jeffrey Dahmer captured national attention. People struggled to understand how someone could commit such acts without being stopped sooner. The defense argued that Dahmer was legally insane, pointing to his mental state and compulsive behavior. But the prosecution pushed back, emphasizing that Dahmer knew exactly what he was doing and took steps to avoid being caught. In 1992, Dahmer was found guilty and sentenced to multiple life terms in prison. The verdict brought some sense of justice, but it didn't erase the questions that lingered. How did this happen? Who could have stopped it? And why didn't they? Even after his conviction, the story didn't end. In 1994, Dahmer was killed by another inmate while serving his sentence. His death closed one chapter, but the impact of his crimes continues to echo to this day. Now, let's look at the cold case clues that still haunt investigators and the public alike. One of the biggest issues in this case was the repeated failure of intervention. There were multiple opportunities where Dahmer could have been stopped. Complaints from neighbors, encounters with police, even prior arrests that didn't lead to deeper investigations. Another critical clue lies in the pattern of his victims. Many were from marginalized communities, which some believe contributed to the lack of urgency in the investigations. This raises serious questions about systemic failures and whether biases played a role in how the case was handled. Then there's Dahmer himself. His ability to appear normal allowed him to avoid suspicion. He blended into society in a way that made it difficult for people to see the danger he posed. This duality remains one of the most unsettling aspects of the case. So what are the theories surrounding Jeffrey Dahmer? Some experts believe his actions were driven by a deep psychological disorder, rooted in his early life experiences and growing isolation. Others argue that while mental illness played a role, Dahmer was fully aware and in control of his actions, making his crimes even more disturbing. There are also theories that focus on the failures of the system. Could better policing, more thorough investigations, or stronger responses to complaints have prevented further victims? Many believe the answer is yes. The Dahmer case is often cited as a tragic example of what happens when warning signs are ignored. Another theory suggests that Dahmer's crimes were enabled by his environment. Living alone, disconnected, and largely unnoticed allowed him to operate without interference. It raises an uncomfortable question about how well we truly know the people around us. The Jeffrey Dahmer case is not just a story of one man's crimes. It's a reflection of the gaps in society that allowed those crimes to continue. It forces us to confront difficult truths about awareness, accountability, and the importance of taking warning signs seriously. As we close this case, one thing remains clear. The horror of Jeffrey Dahmer is not just in what he did, but in how long he was able to do it. 17 lives lost, countless opportunities missed, and a legacy that continues to haunt true crime history. If you want more deep dives into cases like this, make sure to subscribe to Shadow Files and turn on notifications. And let me know in the comments which case you want us to uncover next. Because sometimes, the truth is darker than fiction, and the shadows always have more to reveal.